Welcome back, movie lovers. Today we'll be going through a thriller movie called Sinister Seduction. A mother sleeping with her son's friend. How crazy is that? Let's dive right into it. A man named Mark is seen jogging in the woods in the night when he encounters a boy named Dylan that murders him with a knife. Back to the present after Mark's death, Mark's wife, Sharon, wakes up her son, Anthony, for school. He hesitates first of all, but later decides to go to school. Sharon thinks he might be avoiding school just because a boy named Brent Kilby is bullying him. Sharon meets her friend, Teddy, who is also a police officer in charge of investigating her husband's case. You sure he is just a friend? I mean, he sure looks hot. In the car, Teddy gives Sharon updates about the investigation. In school, Anthony is being bullied by Kilby until Dylan comes around and stops him. Dylan introduces himself to Anthony. He notices that Anthony likes Megan, so he sets him up with Megan, tricking him to join the football team in the process. Dylan is really slick. Kilby is surprised to see Anthony on the field, so he tries to bully him, but the coach sends him off the field. Meanwhile, everyone, including the coach, notice how good Dylan is at football. Sharon and Katie, Sharon's assistant, are seen in a house they are both trying to sell. Back in school, Anthony expresses his shock at how nice Dylan is treating him despite it being their first time meeting. Dylan unveils how his dad died through suicide and how he felt Anthony needed a friend when he discovers that Anthony's dad too was dead. That marked the beginning of their apparent friendship. Dylan drives Anthony home and Anthony introduces him to his mother. His mother is really surprised and also happy that Anthony finally found a friend. Anthony seeks his mother permission to host a pool party in their home. His mother agrees. The party begins in the night and Dylan gives Sharon a long, seductive stare. You must be kidding, Dylan, that's your friend's mom. Dylan reveals to Sharon during the party why he takes Anthony as a friend because of the sad events that happened to both of them. The next day, based on Dylan's request, Sharon takes him to the house her company is trying to sell. Sharon reveals to Dylan that the house belongs to her husband before his death. After a football session, Kilby is annoyed by Dylan's excellence in the sport, so he confronts Dylan about his past performance in his former team. The following day, Dylan goes to pick Anthony at home and meets Sharon wearing a robe revealing her cleavages. Okay, now things are getting interesting. Sharon apologizes for the awkward moment before Anthony comes, and they both leave for school. When Sharon gets to work, she reveals the email she has been getting from Landon, the man she had affairs with while Mark was still alive, to Katie, but she believed his email was hacked. The following day at school, Dylan charges Anthony up to ask Megan out on a date, which he does and she accepts. Way to go, my man. Anthony narrates the goodness to his mom at home and she looks very glad. Later that night, Dylan borrowed Anthony his car and stayed with Sharon while he went on the date with Megan. Now something is about to burst, LOL. Dylan indulges Sharon in a conversation about her dead husband while Megan and Anthony have fun on the date. After the discussion, Sharon decides to take a bath when she notices Dylan coming into the bathroom and joins her in the bath as they make out. Now you gotta be kidding me, you just gotta be kidding me. On the other hand, Anthony scores a point as he kisses Megan after the date. Anthony arrives home and Dylan manages to get out of the bath before Anthony catches them. Anthony begins to narrate how well the date went to Dylan. Only if Anthony knew, man. Dylan gets home to meet a drunken man on the bed as he takes a bottle of whiskey. The disturbing email sent to Sharon still disturbs her. Teddy finally meets Dylan and he admits to Sharon how great Teddy seems before giving her the update on the investigation. Kilby confronts Megan and tells her that Dylan isn't who he seems to be and he was going to prove it, but Megan doesn't listen and she leaves. Sharon loses a couple named the Henderson, interested in the house because of an email delivered to them unveiling how she had an affair before Mark died. Kilby threatens Dylan about revealing the real reason why he got kicked out of his former football team. Dylan feels threatened by this fact, but doesn't show it, so he plans with Anthony and they lie against Kilby for assaulting Dylan. Teddy comes over to the school to investigate and Anthony testifies positively to it. When Anthony and Sharon get home, Sharon asks Anthony why he didn't tell her anything concerning the bully case. Anthony fires back at her saying that she doesn't reveal anything to him and also hated his father's books and tried to prevent him from going down his father's interest without considering his feelings. Well, that was a lot. Later that night, Dylan texts Sharon to give him a tour around the house that she wants to sell. When they meet, Dylan kisses her, while Megan films them as she passes in her car. It just couldn't get any worse than this, LOL. The next day, Anthony wakes up and discovers his mom didn't sleep at home, so he picks up his bike to go to school. Meanwhile, Sharon is woken up by a text from Landon, asking them to meet. At school, Megan shows Anthony the video of his mother and Dylan making out. She tries to explain that Dylan is living under a false identity. Anthony is devastated visibly. When Megan keeps bugging him, he explains to her that this will be his mom's second affair. Katie arrives at the house. Sharon alerts Dylan. He quickly dresses up and leaves the room in a jiffy. Katie is surprised to see Sharon at the house so early. Sharon tries to slow Katie down with small talks, but eventually she enters the room, and fortunately Dylan had already left. Katie discovers a sock that Dylan left behind. Katie concludes that Sharon slept with Teddy in the house because she had been pushing Sharon to shoot her shot at Teddy. Girl, it goes way deeper. It goes way deeper, LOL. Teddy interrogates Kilby about the allegations made against him about the knife. Kilby denies and tries to explain Dylan living under a false identity before he receives a call from someone. At school, Dylan confronts Megan and takes her phone from her to send the video to himself. It appears that Dylan set the whole thing up by inviting Megan on the same night he made his move on Sharon. The video is posted online and amasses a lot of views in a short period of time. Katie shows Sharon the video, and it dawns on Sharon that she has completely destroyed the face of her business. At that moment, Teddy arrives at the house to tell Sharon that he got kicked off the case. Sharon reveals to him that she slept with Dylan. Teddy is visibly surprised and disappointed at the same time. He leaves in sadness. Later that day, Anthony gets a text from Megan asking him to meet her in Dylan's house to talk, so he leaves. Sharon gets home and realizes Anthony isn't home. She begins to panic until she gets a text from an unknown number. The sender appears to Megan as she assures Sharon that Anthony is safe with her, but doesn't want to speak with Sharon. Sharon keeps sending voice notes to the number, but no response until Dylan invites her into the house she wants to sell. She sees a video of Mark playing with Anthony when he was young before Dylan appears and reveals that he killed Mark when Sharon cheated on her husband with his dad. He then begins to force her to commit suicide, but Sharon evades him. She contacts Teddy and he comes quickly to the house, but Dylan had already escaped, so they track him to his house but didn't find anybody. Anthony and Megan are seen tied to a tree. Sharon and Teddy deduce that Dylan might take Anthony and Megan in the woods since it is a small town. Fortunately for them, they are right as they discover Anthony and Megan tied to a tree. As they try to rescue them, Dylan appears from behind and threatens Sharon with a gun. Teddy loses his breath on the way, so Dylan stabbed him. While Dylan threatens Sharon, Anthony manages to get free and rushes to protect his mom and tells Dylan to his face that he is responsible for the death of his father and he should stop blaming it on Sharon. Megan uses this opportunity to wrestle him from behind before the others join to capture him. Sharon makes Katie the new face of her company, and she eventually agrees to date Teddy, and Anthony's social life improves at school. This has to be the best thriller movie. I mean, every moment was captivating. But let me know your best moments in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe.